Hi, everyone. Okay, thank you for having me. Thank you to the School of the Arts and Architecture. Thank you to my professors in the art department. Thank you to my peers in the program. You've taught me more than I will ever be able to articulate. To my parents, I am forever grateful. I was struggling to write this speech, unsure of how my brand of enthusiastic flippancy would translate. I'm not an unserious person, but I would never call myself serious. I would call myself intense or committed to something I struggle to name. Out of this struggle arises my love for art, which is tangled up in my love for language, symbols, and signs. Art, language, symbols, and signs all play with meaning. And ultimately, I'm obsessed with that play and the instability of meaning, that it is constantly shifting and shiftable. Just because something can shapeshift does not mean that it loses traces of its changes. It becomes something new and old simultaneously, an accumulation of history and time. I am also obsessed with ghosts. They are their own intangible manifestations of history and time. I imagine these things, language, art, instability, and ghost, to have everything to do with making meaning and nonsense, which to me is the best part about getting a degree in the arts. Working towards our MFAs has been a practice of unlearning rules, parameters, expectations, and goals that we've set for ourselves and that others have set for us. I was raised with a lot of flexibility, more than I understood at the time. Not understanding this flexibility, I understood myself to be normative, and I understood my varying differences and unorthodoxy to be normative. I still think they might be. The difference itself is normative. Our collective consciousness sometimes clings to other illusionary ideas of normative and of sense. We have to be convinced that something makes sense, but sometimes sense does not make sense. It just follows a specific form, grammar, or structure. In this same logic, what convinces us that something is nonsense is often a lack of a specific form, grammar, or structure. Nonsense means something, and it often makes sense. It just has a different way of convincing you, a less linear or more chaotic way of convincing you. A favorite writer of mine, Percival Everett, asks, when reality becomes absurd, where do the absurdists go? I imagine that this is a great time for the absurdist to be front and center, to make meaning out of the nonsense of the world. The absurdist job is to play with the elusiveness of meaning, that instead of fixity, what the world has to offer is perpetual instability, or flexibility. I think about chaos theory, which describes a nonlinear process in which things move from order to chaos. While the chaos is assumed to be random, it is actually part of a complex system, a repeating, self-organized, and interconnected pattern of feedback loops that have uncertainties and multiplicities, making them unpredictable despite their relation. There is something called the edge of chaos. It is the balancing point between stability and instability. And it is at this edge that a complex system has the opportunity to either collapse or self-organize and transform. When complexity, chaos, and contradictions arise, we enter post-normal time. At the crux of post-normal time is ignorance, uncertainty, and the unthought. And while the unthought might be unknowable for good reason, it could simply be unknowable because alternative models of inquiry and analysis hadn't been put to use, because we're relying on frameworks of accepted truths and basic assumptions. To confront that which is unthought, we have to unlearn, recontextualize, and creatively make new meaning. In Edward Glissant's theory of relation, he imagines an open totality that evolves upon itself, a whole that is not the finality of its parts, but that is in constant evolution, whose order is constantly in flux, and whose disorder can be imagined forever. It's hard to open yourself to an order that's in constant flux. You have to practice centering uncertainties and multiplicities, to experiment with communication, expression, with ways of relating to others, and with ways of relating to yourself. A writer and theorist who I admire, Mackenzie Wark, once tweeted, The artists are just people who have an aesthetic relation to their pathologies. I say lean into it, get to know your pathologies better, have discourse with them, because I, for one, am not sure how to escape them. Or maybe, as Professor Hirsch Perlman says best, enjoy your symptoms. So again, thank you to UCLA, to my professors, to my classmates. Congratulations to all of those graduating today. And thank you to all of those who helped everyone get here today.